covering that position. So it is a give and take. You're pulling from your personal line item, you're pulling from training, you're pulling from else to try and meet what it is. I mean, the biggest thing that I said to you is that, and I've been committed to this, is not to come back to whether I find a way, it is a little bit like playing craps, you roll the dice, whether you're trying to hold back on your general side, whether you're trying to not do that to you.
No, and obviously we appreciate that. But we know that your department has needs. Last year, we were able to supplement your budget by a significant amount over level.
Right.
Maybe not enough, but you've got.
I wrote it down.
You got a car, and you got some gasoline, and you got a chunk of overtime.
Yeah, so I got steps and lanes.
So
I got 48 in overtime, and I got the gasoline, which is, and I went back and just did that's been an issue going back to when I became chief. Yeah, so
right, and the gasoline, I think you did come to us for an RFT on that one.
I did, yeah. Gas, I've had, I think 3 years in a row I had to come for that, and it was actually you guys who decided on your own to raise that line item, because it was just perpetual, it was just gonna continue to.
Right, well, the Department of Revenue suggested it would be a good idea.
Yeah, you're right, that's true,
to fund that, because it was no longer unforeseen.
Right.
At any rate, so I think, it would be our hope that you wouldn't need a lot more overtime, obviously, but we have to look at it as, what is your actual experience? Anyway, to get back to that, how did you have the $200,000 in the personnel line to
It's right here.
tap? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So I think I stole from cadets, I stole from a vacant dispatcher position, that was a whole year, so that was, I think, 44,000 right there.
Okay.
And then I think I stole from the vacancies that existed by holding off hiring. I didn't have to, I had no choice. So I was supposed to hire in July, I don't think they started the police academy until like November. It was later. So you save, they try to save what you can. I mean, as I say, it's not easy to do, but you're trying to live within the bottom dollar budget and not have to come back to you for anything. Go ahead.
Paul?
In your current budget, you have a vacant dispatch. and
No,
you've
that's
got-
been filled. That was filled in November.
So that was filled,
That
and
was
you
filled
have,
in November.
listed vacant training supervisor and 2 vacant cadets.
How many vacant supervisors? I have 2 vacant cadets, which I'm just holding off filling until May, and I kind of give you the reason on that.
Unfunded. No.
No.
That's the exact same as last year.
Yeah, nothing's changed from last year. So 2 cadets went, and I hired 2 cadets. I have 2 vacancies now.
So
The
that's about $70,000.
Right, so the difficulty I have, so I'm holding that money now, I run as lean as I can. One of the issues, as great as the cadet program is that if you're a parent, most of the cadets are in college. That's actually one of the requirements, you have to be in college or a college graduate. So if you're in college and your parent is paying like $50,000 a year for you to go to, say, Suffolk, and I want to give you a 40-hour-a-week job, that parent wants you to graduate college, so we will try to manipulate our shifts too. So we're not going to, the next 2 vacancies, we're holding off till this, we already know who we're going to hire, we're holding off till school gets out before we do this. And it's steal from Peter to pay Paul, but it has, in the long term, it's advantageous, because you've got a police force today that's more than 50% have come out of that cadet program, and you are one of only 2 communities in the Commonwealth that will ever be able to benefit from that. No one else will ever get that. We got that in 1985. No other community has ever been successful in getting that program. Go ahead.
Have you been using that as a methodology for addressing shortfalls regularly?
Yes.
So you've got a couple of vacancies,
you got
you're
a
going to
couple
have shortfalls, so we're going to transfer that money over there, and that's how we're going to deal.
Not really the past 2 years we have, because you know that you're dealing in this level dollar scenario, and you're trying to meet your demands with what you have without coming back to you.
Right. No.
And when I walked in the room and said, I don't intend to come back, what I do is, Deputy King and Con and I, we take the payroll every Friday. Break it down, exactly what we spent. everything from court, in-service, training, regional things, regular overtime, specialized overtime, everything. We have a number that you keep it at. If it goes above, you gotta pull back the next, you've got to make this work over the 52.2 weeks. Because the way I view it, and it's worked for years, I'm not coming back to you for more money.
It's 52.4, I
Or
think
whatever
we're
it
in a
is,
leap
50,
year.
I'll be honest, I'm not an
Anyway,
accountant.
I-
Listen,
I,
if
uh,
I didn't have Ann Condon, I'd be lost. She's my,
Right.
I'm able to carry these things, like I can tell you in my head what the weekly overtime is, I can tell you my overtime budget is, I can tell you most of, but she's very good with the minutia things.
Well, that being said, we did discover that the cemetery had messed up their overtime number by a couple thousand, and you did a similar thing. So we may have to,
See, now I looked at that today, I don't see this, but I'm gonna go back and look at it with her
Right.
tomorrow. You showed that to me tonight, I don't see that number
I'll
in there.
give you-
My number's 390.
I'll give you that sheet.
Okay.
I'm happy to work it out with you.
So you're saying it's a $15,000 difference in my level dollar between 15 and 16?
No, there's, yes, between 15 and 16. I mean,
Okay.
anyway, it's a small thing. It's the same proportion as 2,000 was to the cemetery. So,
Okay.
but anyway, so that's one question. That takes care of that. I see, Steve, did you have a
Yeah.
hand up? Yeah,
if you don't mind.
please.
On Schedule B, Chief, I'm just looking at it. The 63013 balance, and then the revenues and the expenses greatly exceeding the revenues. And I'm wondering, what types of activities, I mean, first of all, I don't know what all of these descriptions are, so maybe if you could run through that quickly, but
So you're talking about firearms, deer, community
Yeah.
policing, all those things?
right.
Okay.
So money's coming in for some of them and not for others. There's
Yeah.
expenses for some of them and not for others. And, at the end of the day, the balance is less than it had been. So the, expenditures are running ahead of revenues. And, where does that money come from? How do you make it up? What does it allow you to do that you
So-
won't be able to do if that goes to zero?
The only big one is E911, and that's the big one, that's the one you're referring to?
Yeah, well, like
Yeah.
SETB.
It's the same thing, it's 911, so
That's
it's stay away. So, the tough thing is, 911, we use that money, you pay nothing for 911. Not a dime, comes out of your, but we, anything, training, computer, radios, everything that goes in that room, they pay for.
Who's they? Feds?
No, the state 911. That surcharge comes from calling 911. That's, calling 411. That's how we support 911 in the call. Which is really kind of be interesting to me, because I feel, and I've been saying this for a while, people, a lot of administrators, chiefs look at 911 like it's this, because it's perpetual, will go on forever. But the thing that I see changing is, who calls 411 anymore? So there's no way they can be taking the same kind of money from 401 calls in 2014 or 2015 that they were taking in 1994. Just, it can't be them. I mean, you take the phone, they'll look it up, you look it up, and then you hit call right on you. It's just like right there, you don't even have to dial 401 anymore. But, so, the money, we are allocated so much every year. It usually comes out around between $50,000 and $60,000. One of the reasons that the SET, that it changes is it also pays for all training. You don't pay for that either. So every person that picks up a 911 line has to take a minimum of 16 hours of mandated training every year. You don't pay any of it. They pay it all. They pay all. So that's the big one. The other thing in revenues is, I do believe that part of the reason the number's so low is that by the end, the time the year ends, it's what you get back. So it filters as you do it. It's not like I applied for a grant for $75,000, I'm gonna get the whole 75. It's as you go, depending on what you do. So the big change, and you see these, is that in the past 2 years, is where the state implemented what's called EMD, where now we use this mandated emergency medical dispatch, so we do that. And there's specified training that goes with that. So I don't see any case where, though, in the long term, at the end, that the revenue's gonna, at the end, it's gonna continue to flow at the number that we spend with it. We don't overspend it, if that's
As a long, and so there are grants that you guys apply for.
every year.
There's seizures, there's
Every
things
year.
like that.
Yeah, so the other thing, so the ones that, firearms fees go right to you. Deer is how we run our deer camp. Part of the reason that community policing is really almost, it's very small. The bulletproof vest thing is really about every 3 or 4 years, you'll get a big one. Because what it is, every 5 years, the state or the feds will pay. So this year, you only see, got $489, only a couple of vests they bought. LEPC is, it goes on my budget, but they really run independently. They run independently, it comes out of my budget, but they run their own, almost like emergency management does. They don't get a lot of money. But those are the things those are the big ones.
So when you get the grants or the seizures or that kind of thing, do you use that for patrol time, or is that more for, doing training?
No,
and
okay, so
stuff?
911, I do it for 2 things, training and anything infrastructure in that room, which is a lot. Seizures, I'll give you an example, and this goes back to, because you would ask me a question about cars, so I'm just gonna, if you look at my budget, under capital, anything more than 10,000 is supposed to be in capital. Our cruisers have always been a line item. That goes back to when your fathers, it goes back, John. They felt that if they didn't put the cruisers, because without cars, we can't function. That's how we get around. And if we put it in the capital, and you have a year like, okay, we're not gonna fund any capital, all of a sudden, your cars just fall apart. So they came up with a 4-car replacement plan. So I think I've only had 4 cars in my line item now, since I'm a chief twice. It just cut, last year was cut to 2. This committee gave me back an extra 3. So I had one investigation in 2008, which brought about $500,000 in seizure. I took that entire $500,000 and invested in all new administrative cars, which we were painting old cars and completely redid the basement level of the police station. Female locker room for 20, new male. This is something that would have been a capital inspector. And I love Bill Ritchie, he does a great job. And he looks at me all the time, he says to me, I don't know if it's good or bad, but he says, I wish everyone thought like you thought. But we collaborate. So if I say tomorrow, we get $500,000 in drug money, I can tell you right now, it's going into things that would be capital requests. Because I view that, and I've used every dime that we've got, I say is close to $500,000 in seizure on doing capital improvements that would normally go before capital and ultimately wind up with you.
And that money all runs through town encumbrances, or do you guys free to? It doesn't show up.
It doesn't, it's not allowed by law to show up. So asset seizure money is run separately by law. There's a federal side and a state side. It was a big deal for us for about 13 years. We had a detective assigned full-time to the DEA. It was actually a very profitable thing for this community. But when we made cuts, that job went. But I thought I just read the other day, I think Canton has like 600,000 in their asset account right now. And I have like 8. But you get, I'm not in the business to do assets to make money, but sometimes you get lucky. So we took every bit of money that we've been able to get our hand on and done it all. And we'd come, if you walk at the police station that Ted walked into today, compared to the station that Kevin walked in 10 years ago, it's completely secure, professional looking with a modern, it's absolutely totally different than it was when I took over as chief. And we did all of that with asset money. Yeah, but assets will never show, by law, assets don't run from the treasurer's office.
And I had one other question, and you can feel free not to answer this, but looking at the salary chart, one of your subordinates is paid more than you?
That's the
Noticed that,
norm.
too.
That's the norm.
That's the norm.
You can't let those things bother you, you just gotta
It
do
just
what you have to
seemed
do.
odd. If you
It's more
don't
common
wanna
than you,
talk
it's
about
more
it, then
common than you
okay.
think.
All right.
And I'm all right with that.
Okay.
Well, those deputies work hard.
It's not a deputy, it's not a deputy.
Yeah.
Oh, was he? Oh, he was a couple years ago. He was a lieutenant then, though. He's a hard worker. Listen, when I say to you, there isn't enough money you could make to go with the things that you see these people. As I say, when I say they go above and beyond, if you see the picture from yesterday, a resident sent me a picture. I had no idea these two officers were doing this. They've been leaving work. The Milton Animal Shelter is the most disgrace, we should all be ashamed of it. It's a disgrace. And, they've been leaving work on their own, going up there, shoveling and cleaning the roof on that building.
I saw that, yeah.
I had no idea. They never told anybody, no one knew. Another one of my female officers been going up there walking dogs. I mean, these are the things, little things that they do that, I suppose if there's any credit that we take as an administration, and I include the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, and Marie, and that is, I put a lot of effort into who we hire and who we recruit, because that's how you shape the face of your community. If you view recruitment and hiring as just like, whoever, you're a fool. Because at some point, all of us are gonna walk out the door, and our careers are gonna be over. And the only thing you can really ask yourself is, have you made the place a little bit better when you leave today than it was before you got there? And if you can say yes, then you've truly accomplished something. Maybe not a big thing, but I think that one of the things that I've come to realize in the policing profession is that when I do leave, or when you leave, that phone's gonna continue to ring. And if you can take some type of solace and pride in the fact that the man or the woman who's gonna pick up that phone and answer it is going to have that same type of idealism, that same type of kindness and compassion, a professionalism that you want them to have, then you've done what the community's paid you to do. I'm a big believer. I know that tomorrow we might shoot someone. Ferguson could happen here tomorrow. But I do know that for today, yesterday, and all the days before that, that each and every day, the men and women who work here, they do their best to make sure that the people who live here get a professional, well-treated society. You know, in the end, it's all about kindness. It's all about compassion. I ask them when they walk in the door, I only want you to have a couple of things: common sense, compassion, courage, and be honest. Everything else we're gonna teach you. You bring that with you, you'll do well. So,
Well,
I've
we'd
talked a
love-
lot. I've talked a lot. I know we could be here all night. I've talked a lot.
We've got some more
so-
questions.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't know if to start with the little ones first or what, but can you just quickly tell me, what is SETB again?
So there were two up there, SETB and E911. So SETB is the money you get by having a 911. That's the statewide executive telecommunication board, also known as statewide 911. And E911 training is your training monies that you get for all your training you're required to do.
I got that. So the SETB money came in the previous year and was expended? I mean, it just came in.
Let me see, so which year are you
So
talking
what
about?
I
The
just
balance
don't
in
understand
13,
it,
it was all spent. 14 was spent.
because it didn't show anything coming in, it was just spent.
You didn't have any revenue listed for that.
So
You just got it as an expenditure.
it's
That's
kind
a
of like
good
you
question.
reclassed some of your
No, that didn't,
9/11
no,
money.
we didn't do that. So I'm gonna have to ask Ian how she did that. Go ahead.
Didn't you say that it comes every 3 years?
No, it comes every year, but they can be slow in coming. No, it comes every year. You get money every year.
All right, anyway, so that's,
So I'm gonna have to get you an answer on that one.
Right.
That's a good question. I don't know why that's like that.
okay.
But I will say to you, I don't know where this came from. This is a much different exercise than any budget I've ever done in the past.
Well,
It kind of spells out a lot.
one of the.
I see, for you guys it does,
Yeah.
right? For you it does.
It's much easier to see what, you know, especially in terms of general expenses, we get to see what you're.
What you spend your money on.
What you spend your money on. One of the budgets we didn't look at was the emergency, the MEMA budgets. You know, it's $10,000. I don't, you know, and I know some of the guys, you know, who work for the auxiliary fire, and, you know, they're into it and they do a great job. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about the emergency auxiliary services.
So let me say this to you. So I'm very fond of them. The auxiliary fire is bigger today than the auxiliary police was. The auxiliary police just, I think part of his training, part of his liability, part of his demands, they're just not as big as they were when I was a kid. They
You
were
don't
probably
have an
50.
antique police car for them
Yeah, I do. No, I
either,
have one.
do you?
I have one.
Okay.
I actually have a sleigh. I have an 1890 Milton Police sleigh all put away over there that was bought in, there were two of them bought, a wagon and a sleigh by the town in like 1891. I have the sleigh, it's worth, we could sell that,
use it
Dave,
now.
we could sell it, yeah, okay, use it now, I know.
2 rides in the one.
Yeah, I know, believe me, I just too, it's that delicate, it's that, so, let me just say this about the auxiliary, their budget, is it 10,000? I don't even look, is it 10,000 total? I think they split it. right? Half and half?
10,615 total for all chapters of it, and
So
it hasn't changed in years.
The auxiliary police,
And
Their
They
role
do
is-
spend it,
we spend it, their role is mostly, special events,
yeah.
parades, Memorial Day, they come out on Halloween, anything. Auxiliary fire guys, I'm a big fan of them. I can't,
They're open on Tuesday nights.
I know they are.
Yeah.
I've had a hand in them. I will say that to you, I've had a hand in their equipment, in the vehicles that they have. What they do for us, they come to every major scene. They come to crime scenes, they come to fatal accidents. They helped us last week, 2 of them, Buddy McDermott and Paul Hopkins. Rob Mallett, who's your IT director, they went out and we got them a grant, a private grant last year for a brand new 4-wheel drive pickup truck. They spent hours driving. We went into the business of transporting any medical staff to either Milton, Quincy, or County, and they came in nonstop. I can't say enough of them. I don't know how you could say anything bad about people who are willing to give so much to their community. I will say this to you, though. After they're gone, I don't know who's gonna do it. They're not kids. John Fleming, he's been doing this since I was a kid. Mark Williams was in the auxiliary police when I was in St. Agatha School.
So they need to do a little recruiting.
Yeah, and it's hard. How hard is recruiting here? You think it's any easier for them? It's just, it's not easy, and, but I'm a big fan of this. I really am, and what they do and what we do for them is way above what the dollar line item is. As I say, I don't think you've bought them a vehicle. You buy them minimal in equipment.
No.
What they go out and get and do on their own is just pretty amazing, and so that's why in my private, something I do privately, as you know, in my personal life as a Copeland trustee, they've been one of, not just me, all of us, all 6 of us, they've been something that's been very special to us, as have many projects, but that one has, because they do things with no notoriety and most people don't even know who they are. You guys are privileged in that because they come before you, know who they are and what they do, but they're very good.
Well, it is one of your budgets. So
I know it
figure
is, I know it is one of my budgets. Don't tell me you're
It's
gonna
not-
cut them.
It's not difficult. It's not a difficult piece of your budget.
No.
Um,
If everything were as easy as they were,
Yeah.
they are, that would be,
It'd be great, it'd be great. No, this budget looks different, what we asked you to do this year. And of course, one of the things, if you could confirm for me, you have no contracts, outside contracts with anybody? You do have a line item for contractual services.
Yeah, contractual
but
services.
that's as it comes up, an
yeah.
outside
So I have
contract.
contractual services for like, like Motorola, certain things, HVAC, generator maintenance, but I think my contract with that now is merged with, I think I merged that contract over to Consolidated Facilities. I think he does that contract now. He went with the same company I had, but anything I could put into bill, I did. And I just wanna echo, when the town came up with the concept of going into Consolidated Facilities, we're all parochial, we all wanna protect our eggs. It was really a smart move, and you could not have no better person than Bill Ritchie. That guy and I've seen a lot of them in the past 2 weeks. They do a great job for us. They really do. I know that we all need more money, and I know they need more money, but you're very fortunate as a community to have a guy like Bill Ritchie, because that guy rolls up his sleeves, walks right in waist deep, and he's not afraid to tackle issues. He's very good about that. He's accessible. You can find him. I hate bothering him. I bother him probably more than I want to. He knows I'm not afraid to pick up a shovel and run a snowball. I don't care. I'll do things like that. But he does a great job for the community.
Anyway, I wish we were in the position of sitting here and saying, yep, no problem.
I know that.
You're
I know
gonna,
that.
you're going to have the pleasure of hiring some
Two
new
police officers, right.
compassionate police officers. But I think as I told the library, I think filling a new, filling any new positions is gonna have to come along with an override. It's just, we don't have it.
So, yeah, so here's so I'll give you that. So, following the 2-year plan and understanding the override, and
Okay.
if you look at, I'm just gonna pull this out, because I thought about this as I listened to some of your comment, I listened to Phil's comment, I mean, you definitely, you've got your finger on the pulse, you know what's gonna happen. But I talked a little bit about, I gotta find what I had it here, ballot.
Well, I mean, next year is gonna be a swing year, and I think if
I'm gonna quote a town treasurer who used to say,
uh-oh.
we didn't have an override
On
every,
my website, you
every
wanna read
five,
it?
is that on there? Did you,
Oh,
if
yeah.
we don't have an, if we don't have,
every
a-
year.
if we don't have one every 5 years, the quality of life that exists is going to change. Am I right, have I got that right, Kevin?
Close enough.
So
Right.
the ballot question, this was it was a $3,420,189 override. It was $1,007,000 for the schools, 61 for Parks and Recs, 80 for the cemetery, 77 for libraries, 4 for the Board of Health, 634 for the DPW, 398 for police, 114 for general, 18,000 for the warrant committee, no, it was boards and committees. And 13 for inspection services. Now, that was the largest we'd ever had, and if I remember correctly, one of the things that crippled this was the governor, Patrick, came out with big 9C cuts, like right after that, right after so we had to deal with the 9C cuts. It really hampered what this should have done that year. Here's what I will say to you, that this is my concern, and this is why, what I did that year to try and push that override was and it's on our website, was I created an informational program called Cops Count Policing Matters, a factual perspective on policing issues in Milton. And I ran that as an informational, why you want to do this, why we need to vote for this override. And I had invited every town meeting member by precinct to the police station. We ran it for 2 weeks. And I forgot about it until someone said to me, oh, yeah, it's on the website. And every once in a while, someone will mention me. Brian Kelly from My Town Matters mentioned to me a few months ago, whatever it was. He said, you remember that cops count thing? I'm like, God, I don't know if and I stole it from Commissioner Brandt because he was the first one I ever heard say it. But I know that my concern is that if I don't increase, because I didn't ask for anything else, if I don't increase the personnel this year, we are going for an override next year. Anyone who thinks we're not is not following government in this community. They're not listening, they're not reading between the lines, they're not. You've stretched this, I mean, the level dollar exercise, I give credit to everyone who's been involved in that, because that got us farther than I ever would have thought. It was a Band-Aid approach that has worked for, am I correct, 3 years in a row? 4 years, Kevin?
Well, actually, okay, you mentioned level dollar budgets in your narrative.
Right.
Last year was not.
Well, yeah, it was, all right, so it was a level dollar exercise, and then there were givebacks, right?
Right.
And we survived.
Pretty much,
We survived.
pretty
We
much
survived.
last year was the first time in about 5 or 4 that any town department got a significant give back. So, I mean, the exercise before had been, oh, if your salary and wages go up, you have to cut that out of your general expenses. We didn't do that this year because it's a waste of time. We're obligated to pay the salary and wages, and in all those years, whatever you carved out of your general expenses was given back,
Right.
okay? But those general expenses, the money you had for that lost its purchasing power over those 4 years, and other things and circumstances changed too. So you had your personnel protected, and your general expenses were held at a dollar level for 4 years, until last year, that's when we had the opportunity to
Some money back.
to give you a little something over general, over level dollar on general expenses. And this year, it just didn't make sense to put everybody through that exercise of chopping out, you know, what their budget was going up for salaries, and then at the end of the day saying, oh, we can't even do that exercise on the school side because we don't have those numbers, so let's just give it back. So it simplified things, so then we decided to complicate the budget template anyway. But
So let's go to the 2-year, in the override.
yeah,
You're not gonna be able to do an override to get 2 additional police officers. Your override is gonna be to survive, to maintain what you have. Absolutely. You disagree? You think you're gonna get an override to give you more than what we have today? I don't see how we get it.
Next year, sure, absolutely.
The problem with that is, we don't know what the number is.
Well, we don't know.
Next year.
No, I can-
And if you, no.
I'll write it down on a piece of paper right here for you right now.
No, I'm saying, you write it down, but I'm saying, we don't know what that
No, I'm not
number
gonna,
is,
but I
and
just-
it's gonna be big. The real number's gonna be really big, and then we're gonna get a number people can stomach, and that's pretty much probably what it's gonna end up being. And, it's gonna be a survival budget, survival number, and that's what it's gonna be. You put it off too long.
So my issue to that, my answer to that though, to you is that I knew that coming in here, and my issue is, police chief is, I don't have enough police officers today. You want me to wait another year, which will be another year, which you're a dog shit, you'll never do it. And that's the issue you have.
Well, see, that issue needs to be explained.
that's the
That's
issue
what
we
we
have
do.
with the fire department, and the $100,000 extra they want next year in their overtime line.
No,
So what I'm saying to you is, when I leave here tonight, my efforts to start, and I've never done them, my efforts to start, my fight to get these 2 officers starts tomorrow. This fight I have to take this fight to the community. If there's one thing I've come to realize, I mean, people wanna feel safe, they wanna be protected. They, it's great to have, you know, as I say, I'm a team player, and to say, there's nothing else here. I didn't talk about another thing other than,
I hear you. Yeah, they wanna feel safe, they wanna feel protected. They like to have the streets plowed and the garbage picked
you
up
know, all
and
those things, but
get educated, you know?
I'm talking the very core, personal protection. That's, and I say, I don't like to go out but I know to do this, I have to do this. This is that.
try to get you help.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, was the source of a question that you said,
No,
Chief.
if you look at it,
I should say, first of all, thanks for a great presentation. I learned a lot tonight. And I was the source of this question. You said you wanted more clarity on it, but maybe
Is this someone text to you?
I'll explain to you after.
no, I'm trying to remember what it
okay.
was. We asked who's on disability, and you said no one.
No one.
Can you explain? And so what we meant was,
Don't go there.
what's the level of injury pay that's going on? We did address it. We said that people in the department are very
I don't have any right now.
dedicated.
Yeah, I mean,
Like every
I don't
5
have
years.
any. I have, yeah, I know, knock on wood, anything could happen tomorrow.
So-
It's,
So how, is it like, is it sick pay, or what, how should we have phrased that question? What was the level?
so disability pay would be injured on duty, that's what you were referring to.
Injured on duty, yeah.
Are there people injured on duty right now? The answer is no. And I don't remember the last time I've had one.
Oh, that's, I had some experience like 20 years ago, where I was working for an insurance company, and a municipality in New England hired us to set up medical exams on disabled police and
Yeah.
firefighters. And a slew of these people went back to work. Like, all we did was like set up the exam, and they were miraculously cured.
I mean,
had no idea a letter would do that.
Independent medical exams.
But that's a good story, if the Milton Police Department.
I mean, you could have, I mean, it happens, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, everyone's very familiar with the Pickens case, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I mean,
Yeah.
the most recent, the worst one I can think of in the past few years, we had a detective who was investigating a house break. A house on Upper Canton Avenue, and he was on the second floor with the victim, was the follow-up investigation that night. And as they were coming down the stairs, he was at the top, and it was a pretty big house, and he tripped and fell down the entire flight of stairs. And he broke his leg in a couple of places. He was out for a good period of time. But, and the thing that I remember the most was the poor victim saying that even though his house had been broken into, the vision he couldn't get out of his head was seeing the detective fall down the whole fight, right, witness the whole thing and see it happen. I mean, those things, I mean, there's been crews around, I've had small ones, a day here, few, but nothing, they say knock on wood, it's bad
Well,
for a
Chief,
long
that sounds
time.
like a great story, that you want to tell the voters if they're going for an override, that there's, compared, I'm a spreadsheet guy, so if you looked at somebody else's and compared how Milton is doing to other towns, that would be a good story.
We have a great partnership with Arc Health at Milton. Arc Health is very big in employee pre-employment, screening, workplace, occupational therapy, physical therapy, all those things. They're very, very good. We've had a very good relationship with them that way.
So the other thing is, since there's a crime, is this drug seizure money. It looks like there's, could be, it's off the books by law.
Yeah, so drugs, right, go ahead.
I'm thinking like, okay, we're hearing about an opioid addiction, there's lots of people using drugs out there.
There's no money in heroin. Acid seizures does not come from heroin. Acid seizures come from two drugs. What's the first one? What's the money?
Oxycontin.
No, not Oxycontin, no, oxys, no.
Cocaine and
Marijuana, cocaine, two big ones.
Well, marijuana's
Those are
going
two
away
big ones.
someday.
Yeah, but, yes, maybe someday, but it's still, believe me, it's still out there. It's still out there.
Okay, so,
Those are important.
All done?
am I all done? No, the other thing is like the 411
Surcharge.
butt calls.
Surcharge.
So, you
Oh,
have
the
to.
911 ones, the 911, you mean
911,
911
yeah,
hang-ups.
911, it's a waste of time and you still have
Doesn't
to
matter,
do it.
doesn't matter.
What would have to happen to make that go away? Like,
Never happened.
wasted effort in government just annoys
It's
me.
isn't it a state
Great-
law?
State law, it's a
Yeah.
federal law. I'll give you a great case.
You know why they think if you pick up the phone and
Absolutely.
say, someone called 911 from this residence, and I say, oh, it was a mistake, I could have someone holding a
Absolutely.
gun to my head,
Or it's-
and so they have to come and check it out to make sure that I'm okay.
That happens more than you think.
Right,
Yeah.
of course.
More than you, a lot of our 911s, our dispatchers are very good, they're well-trained. They're not just listening, they're listening to what they're hearing in the background, what noise do they hear, what's going on. But he's exactly right. My wife and Kat, they have a great case in Cambridge where, the guy kidnapped the woman, and she was just able to get like one call off, and that the cops were, the Revelers case. I'll give you the Revel, there's a great case. The Revelers case, in the Revelers case, the first victim made the initial 911 call as this atrocity started. The 911 call continued as she was killed into the 5-year-old and then the 9-year-old. The phone was passed one to the other. The first officer who got to that house, his only information, he had no idea this was going on. He just knew there was assault and screaming. When he got to the door, just by the listening, he made a determination that a lot of cops could have. I've said often publicly that some supervisors, kicking the front door is not something we do the United States Constitution protects your home first and foremost. He kicked that door in on his own, based with limited info coming from that 911 call. He kicked that door in. Had he not kicked that door in, and the action that the three of them then took collectively, all three of the occupants would have been killed in the house. They saved the 9-year-old. So that's as Betty said, but that's the reason why the 911 law exists. And that's why next gen 911, as I talked about, will have call if you can, text if you can't. Because they understand that there are situations where people just can't make the call, so they'll text. And domestic violence is one of the big ones. It's definitely one of the big ones. So that puts a lot of emphasis on us. It's easy to do like that. But you'd be surprised what we find from these calls.
It's 11 o'clock and the committee's getting tired and I've already come up with one stupid idea for the library.
He said you could email him your question.
Yeah,
You
so
can
I'm not
email,
gonna
I'll
bring
call
up
you.
the whole thing about giving rise to the Council of Aging, you know, like, since the police cars, since the gas thing's being bought, I'll leave that off.
So,
No more questions?
so I just want to get back to money for a sad, short minute here. I know you said you aren't asking us for anything else, but I want to put that in context. Your level dollar request this year is up 4.9% over last year. And that's just the reality of
That's
what
yeah.
it takes to fund a department. We only get 2.5%, so obviously, you know, as departments require more than that every year, eventually, you have to do something more drastic than looking under the rocks. Your level service request would be a 6.9% increase.
Right.
And, you know, just when, you know, this year, if we have a 2.5%, you know, increase, maybe a little bit more from some new growth, that's great, but it doesn't come close to the 4.9.
So what are you doing with the
So-
two, and I heard a little bit of just
Right.
listening today. So I know free cash was certified, what, 2.9?
2.9.
Was it, right, 2.9,
Right.
so are we touching free cash this year, or are we not? I mean,
Well,
you're not
oh,
gonna be able to
yeah.
get an override with 2.9 free cash.
Well, see, that's
It's not
the
gonna happen.
problem. That is the problem. The 2.9 should probably,
I mean, I know you're gonna have the snow and ice is gonna take a piece.
snow and ice is gonna take a lot more than we've calculated on. I mean, when we were sitting around earlier, it was early January, we had 6 inches of snow for the entire year.
Right, and everybody thought, oh, this is gonna be,
A nice, easy
I even heard Joe
winter.
Lynch say, like, this is gonna be, someone kept saying, boy, that salt pond's filled up on Randolph Avenue. I'm like, if that salt pond's filled in March, I'll like play the law.
So, yeah, no, it's a problem.
So I
Snow and
heard,
ice is a problem, and the reason, among many reasons that it was felt to be a good idea not to go for an override this year, to do things like add librarians and policemen, was because we could probably get that done next year when we were going to have an override anyway, operationally, for stormwater management expenses that are being mandated by the Environmental Protection Agency to the tune of about $800,000. So. we
that's
gotta-
what you wanna go for an override for?
No, just, the 800,000 is going to be just for the stormwater, to meet the mandates of the EPA. So the thought was, gee, nobody's ever going to go for 2 in a row, so we better put it off.
2 overrides in a row.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go from 2 anyway.
Well, we're having a small one,
Information.
I know
small
that,
one
right.
for Pickens.
Right, I knew that.
And so it will be 2 in a row, but an operational one 2 years in a row was in the face of getting 2.9 million in free cash, was deemed to be politically impossible.
So what do you, I heard talk today about
But we've
stabilization,
run out of
I
money.
heard talk about, I heard a lot of, just to make up, so what are you anticipating funding? Level dollar, level service, level, what do you?
Right now, level dollar, if I'm lucky. If I'm
Even with,
lucky.
even with 2.9 in free cash and new growth?
Yeah,
Those numbers don't match.
yeah, no, they do. They do.
So you're telling me to live with a level dollar budget, we're gonna spend the 2.9 in free cash. What's new growth, 1 million? What was it, about 1 million? Is it more than 1 million?
No, new growth is about
Oh, what was the 2%? No, what was it, I mean, what was the two, what was new growth for this year, how much?
About 375,000 is
5,000, okay.
what Bob Bush, I think.
And what does the 2.5 give you, how much?
1.635.
Don't cover contractual. Don't cover anything.
So the thing is, that's not all money that wasn't spent last year. We spent some free cash last year. So, on operation, well, on some items, okay? So if we spent maybe $1 million of free cash last year on things that are in the budget this year, then that 2.9 free cash isn't all new money, only 1.9 of it is.
Right.
Okay, so you dig yourself a deeper hole each year, all right? So that's the reason. And the year before that, I don't know if you want the history, but the year before that, there was a similar $800,000
Right,
element,
right.
okay? So yeah, it's not all new money.
I just don't know how you do it with a level dollar again. I don't know how you do it.
Well, your level dollar ends up being 4.9% increase. And, you know, some taxpayers would say, well, you can't get by on that, right?
Some would say, I expect more.
And absolutely.
Some would say, I would say to you that
We are summarizing the
Oh,
problem.
I know that, I know that. And I know you have I know you have, and believe me, that's why I didn't come in, I didn't even give anything to the capital committee. I didn't submit, I knew, I've been saying this now for
Right.
5 years. I'm gonna need more police officers. The town had me go through an exercise in a 5-year financial forecast, the selectmen did. I was very clear with the selectmen. You've got to hire more police officers. You have more firemen than you have policemen.
We haven't.
And I understand we're in a team approach here, you know, we work on this, but when I say to you, 3 words stick in my mind, sanctity of life, that's what's in my mind. And that, my feeling is that if I were to go out and argue to this community, which is not my job, I don't wanna have to, but if I were out to argue with this community why they need more police officers, I think they would support it.
I think they would too.
I think they expect it. I don't think they would just, I think they would expect it. And I think that, if there's one thing that we've developed a great deal in this community with this police department, in the community, and the partnerships we have, is a lot of faith and trust, and I don't come in, and I don't even think I've ever had a wish list of things, like, and I know you've seen, I believe in living in what you give us. I'll argue for what I believe is right on behalf of the department and the community. And I gave a lot of thought before I came in and made this presentation tonight, because I believe
and it shows.
wholeheartedly that that's what we need. Not yesterday, not 2 years from now, that's what we need today. So, I thank you.
I presume you've given this presentation before this year?
I've given a different one every year. I give
No,
something.
but
Just
you gave it to the selectmen as well?
no. I just emailed it to them tonight.
Ah.
You were the first. You were the first one to get it.
Let's talk to our
You
friends
should
here.
give it to the select,
But you,
I did.
Yeah,
I gave it to them
no,
tonight.
no.
I
like
emailed.
this.
but you gave them a budget presentation
Yes.
earlier.
And because I had to in my level service, required the creation of 2 additional positions. So that required the support of the selectmen and the support of the personnel board. So I made the argument before the selectmen, and then I made the argument before the personnel board. And then the next stop was here. So that's how that, I couldn't just put that in my level, so I need 10, I couldn't do it. I worked for the board of selectmen. I made the argument to them, got their support, went to the personnel board, got their
Well-
support, and then came here.
Well, they haven't made that argument here.
Their support would require an override.
Yes.
I mean, in theory, they supported you, and I'm sure they will support it next year.
I just
So,
don't know if that's the route to go, but we just tend to differ on that. That's just my own past experience of how overrides have gone in this town.
well, we seem to be on that path, and what it will mean is that it'll be a bigger number. And that's the risk in it, because it could get voted down.
Listen, you're talking to the wrong person about, Am I
That's
right,
the,
Betty?
but that's the risk. That's
Yeah.
the risk
Anyone who
in
thinks
waiting another year.
That you,
Right.
even as strong as I just made this presentation, that as chief, you could ask every citizen in this community to come in and vote yes for it, that all of them are gonna vote yes? No way. It's just not gonna, you know, I mean, you know, it's just not gonna happen.
But we haven't lost one yet, chief.
I'm not one to not fight. Just say I got myself in trouble for a day last time, it is truly unique, and I say this wholeheartedly. It is truly unique what we have here. There are very few places I have ever been in, and probably the greatest thing that I had in my police career, different from my father's, was I've truly been allowed a cosmopolitan view of policing away and beyond the borders of Milton and the city of Boston, from the west coast to the south to New York City and across the ocean to Ireland. And it is truly unique that you can take a community that when you walk outside, in its geographic layout, in the makeup of the diversity of its community, its schools, its public safety, every aspect of it, and take it and put it next to the major metropolis of the Commonwealth, with the 200,000 cars a day winding their way through us every which way they can, and have what exists here in this town, you'd be hard pressed to find it somewhere else. And I don't
No,
think
we're
it-
very lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you lose it, you'll never get it back.
That's what we do.
And I think it's incumbent on all of us to fight to protect it. And I'll leave you with that for tonight if you don't
I
have any more
appreciate it,
questions.
and I really appreciate your coming in here and making this presentation
Thanks, chief.
and
Thanks.
giving us
Thanks
your
for your
time.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks, chief.
Man,
Thank you.
I'm willing to hear a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thanks, folks.
Yes.